Hey, what's going on today? We're going to talk about something that a ton of people in the Hollow Knight community have been waiting for and finally got a taste of, another update to Silksong. That's right, Team Cherry has actually put out another patch, and this time it's version 1.0-28470. Now here's the interesting part. This is technically the second release under the same version number. The first one came out on September 9th, and then just a few days later, on September 12th, they pushed it out again, still labeled as 1.0-28470. And that might seem confusing at first glance, like why release the same number twice? But it actually says a lot about how Team Cherry is handling Silksong's first round of fixes and balance changes since the big launch. And trust me, this second release matters a lot more than some people might realize. So, let's break it down in plain terms. The September 9th patch was sort of like the first pass. It introduced the initial round of fixes, smoothing out some bugs that were starting to frustrate early players, and giving small tweaks to how the early game feels. But then, just 3 days later, the September 12th patch refined those changes further, squashing a whole set of new problems and expanding the scope of fixes in a way that actually makes the game more stable for everyone going forward. So when people ask, why does this September 12th version matter? The answer is, this is the one that really locks in the reliability of the fixes. It's not just a quick hotfix. It's the patch where you can feel confident that a lot of the big blockers and annoying issues you may have run into are going to be cleared out of your way. For example, one of the most annoying problems that got addressed was the cloakless situation after the slab escape sequence. If you've been through that moment, you know how vital your cloak is to progression. Players were reporting they'd get through this section and then suddenly find themselves without the cloak entirely, leaving them stranded. That's the kind of bug that can completely break your flow and even make you think your save file is ruined. By fixing that, Team Cherry basically restored trust in the game's progression system, and that's huge because early frustration can make or break how players talk about a game to others. And remember, Silksong has had this almost mythical reputation for years, so the last thing anyone wanted was for the game's launch experience to feel dull, janky. Another major fix that came in this September 12th release was around the infestation operation wish. In the late game, some players literally couldn't complete it. Think about how much that undercuts your sense of accomplishment. You get to that stage, invest time, effort, resources, and suddenly the game says, nope, you can't finish this quest. That's soul-crushing. The same goes for the Beast and the Bells wish, which was also uncompletable in certain late-game conditions. Both of those are the kinds of things that, if they linger in a game for too long, they sour long-time players. Fixing them now in the second patch pass means they didn't let those frustrations fester too long. And that's honestly one of the smartest things Team Cherry could have done. But it's not just about fixes. It's about balance, too. And here's where the September 12th patch really makes a difference. They made some targeted changes to the early game difficulty. If you fought Moorwing or Sister Splinter, you know they were pretty punishing encounters for players who are still learning the ropes. It's one thing to challenge veterans, but when you scare away newcomers before they even get the chance to fall in love with the world, that's a problem. So they slightly reduced their difficulty, making the fight still engaging, but not as overwhelming right out of the gate. That's the sort of thoughtful adjustment that helps expand the player base, instead of narrowing it down to only those who are willing to grind through frustration. And let's talk about those Sandcarvers. If you've tangled with them before, you know exactly why this change matters. They were dishing out a little too much damage for what they're supposed to represent, and now with this patch, they've toned it down. That makes the encounters more fair, less of a cheap shot situation. You want players to feel challenged but not cheated, and this is a great example of that balance correction. On top of those tweaks, they even adjusted the economy a bit. Mid-game Bellway and Bell bench prices are now slightly reduced. That's the kind of quality of life change that doesn't seem flashy at first, but once you're in that part of the game, it really smooths the progression curve. The September 12th patch also boosted the rewards you get from relics, psalm cylinders, and courier deliveries. So instead of constantly feeling like you're scraping for rosaries, you actually feel like the game is respecting your time and rewarding you fairly for your effort. That sort of shift is going to have a ripple effect across how people perceive the pacing of the whole experience. And then there's the technical fixes, the kind of stuff that doesn't always get headlines, but absolutely changes how smooth the game feels when you're playing. Floating after down bouncing on certain projectiles, that's fixed now. Courier deliveries being locked away in Act 3, that's resolved too. Even the lace tool deflect soft lock in deep docks is gone, which means fewer situations where players just sit there staring at a screen wondering if they need to reload. These sound like small things when you read them, but Stacked together, they're massive in terms of keeping the gameplay flow intact. Nothing kills immersion faster than getting soft locked in the middle of an intense fight or exploration section. And now those headaches are far less likely. Another one worth highlighting is the claw mirrors issue, where Hornet could end up inverted under very specific conditions. That's such a weird visual bug, but it really messes with the tone when your character looks broken in a way that's not intended. Fixing that is just another example of how this patch is more than just bug squashing. It's about preserving the integrity of the experience. And here's the kicker. This patch applies retroactively. That means if you already hit one of those roadblocks or experienced one of those bugs before, updating to this version clears it up. You don't have to restart, you don't have to give up your progress. That's such a relief because nothing feels worse than hearing, sorry, you need to start a new save. Retroactive fixes mean your hard-earned time isn't wasted. So circling back to why the September 12th release matters so much more than the September 9th one, here's the deal. The first update showed that Team Cherry was listening. It was their first sign of life in terms of addressing post-launch problems. But the September 12th update proved that they're not just checking things off a list, they're actively refining, polishing, and making sure the experience is what it needs to be. Not just technically playable, but truly enjoyable. That's why this patch feels important. It's a statement of commitment. And let's be honest, Silksong had a mountain of expectations placed on it. After years of speculation, trailers, leaks, and people building up this mythos around the game, it was always going to be impossible to release it in a state that pleased absolutely everyone. But what matters now is how quickly and thoughtfully Team Cherry responds. And this patch is the reassurance a lot of players needed. It shows that they're not going to leave us stuck with game-breaking issues or unbalanced encounters for months on end. Now, think about the broader picture here. Patches like this, especially so close to release, are kind of like a developer's way of laying down groundwork. They're not just fixing immediate issues, they're paving the way for smoother content updates, future expansions, or even new modes that rely on the foundation being solid. That's why I keep stressing how significant this September 12th release is. It's not just another patch. It's a sign that Silksong is entering a more stable era where players can really dig into the content without worrying about the rug being pulled out from under them. And for the fans who are following every little change, the economic tweaks might end up being some of the most impactful. More rosary rewards and cheaper benches mean less grinding, more time spent on exploration, combat, and story progression. That's what people fell in love with in the first Hollow Knight, that perfect rhythm between challenge and reward. By nudging the numbers in the right direction, Silksong is now closer to hitting that same rhythm without making you feel punished for simply playing the game. The cool part is, this isn't even likely to be the last patch. If Team Cherry is already rolling out a second fix within days of the first, it shows they've got an ongoing pipeline of changes in motion. They're going to keep polishing, keep responding, and that means the game is only going to get better from here. But for now, if you're looking at Silksong and wondering when's the best time to really commit to a full playthrough, this September 12th version is probably the point where you can feel confident that your experience is going to be smoother, fairer, and more rewarding. So yeah, when people ask me why this update matters, I'd say it's because it shows Team Cherry is serious about shaping Silksong into the masterpiece people have been waiting for. They could have left things as they were after September 9th, but instead they doubled down, released a second pass, and ensured that the most frustrating issues were addressed within days. That's a big deal, and it's why this version is the one people should be paying attention to.